What if the most powerful man in tech was humiliated in court, and responded with a single sentence that stunned the world? The federal courtroom was ice cold, not from the air conditioning, but from the tension that soaked the air like humidity in August. The spectators leaned in, journalists poised with pens above paper, live tweets already halfway written in their minds. At the center of it all stood Rachel Carter, a young attorney whose pulse thudded behind her ears. To her left sat Elon Musk, impassive, composed, and unreadable behind his signature calm. He wore no tie, just a black suit, his face lit only by the flickering screens of 1,000 lenses. At the bench towered Judge John Whitmore, an aging, stern man with deep-set eyes and a mouth like a scar. He adjusted his glasses, leaned forward, and delivered a blow masked as judicial commentary. Mr. Musk, while you parade around with rockets and robots, perhaps you've forgotten that in this courtroom, you're not a genius, you're a defendant. Arrogance may serve you in Silicon Valley, but it has no place in my court. The courtroom went silent. No whisper, no cough. Even the court reporter's hands paused for half a second. Elon Musk slowly turned his head toward the judge. Then, in a voice so steady it didn't need to be raised, he said, "Your Honor, history doesn't remember those who follow the rules, it remembers those who challenge them for the better." There was no gasp, but the collective breath of the room tightened like a drawn bowstring. It was the tone, not the words. He hadn't yelled. He hadn't insulted. He had reminded everyone in the room, including the judge, exactly who he was. Rachel sat frozen. For a moment, she thought the judge might hold him in contempt. But Whitmore only narrowed his eyes, then muttered something inaudible and moved on. Rachel leaned slightly forward, whispering under her breath, "Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning." What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Her sarcasm was dry, but she needed to break the pressure somehow. She was barely 30, in her first major federal case, and now she was defending one of the most polarizing and powerful men on earth. A week ago, she was handling minor contract disputes for an underfunded startup in Palo Alto. Then came the call, her mentor injured in a car accident, his spot vacant, and the legal team needing someone with knowledge of AI regulation. Rachel had been researching neural policy for 2 years. It was her chance. And now here she was, front row to what might become the most controversial tech trial of the decade. The prosecution accused Musk's company of violating ethical boundaries in AI development, collecting vast datasets without consent, and allegedly manipulating algorithms for commercial bias. But Rachel knew that wasn't the whole story. Beneath the surface, there were murmurs of something bigger: government control, military contracts, suppressed discoveries. She had read between the lines of the documents. Something smelled off. The trial adjourned for lunch, and Rachel stood slowly, gathering her notes. She turned toward Elon, expecting him to say something about the judge, maybe a quip or another cryptic line. But instead, he looked directly at her and said, "What did you think of his statement?" Rachel blinked. "I think he's trying to provoke you. Push your buttons. Maybe even get you to blow up." "And?" Elon asked. Rachel steadied herself. "And I think you gave him exactly what he didn't expect, dignity." For the first time since the trial began, he smiled. It wasn't wide or charismatic. It was barely there. But it meant something. Outside the courthouse, protesters waved signs, some in support of Musk, others calling him a danger to democracy. A row of reporters barked questions into the void, hoping for sound bites. Musk ignored them. Rachel tried not to meet their eyes. Inside a black SUV, shielded by tinted glass, Rachel finally allowed herself to breathe. She closed her eyes. "Do you regret taking the case?" Musk asked. She opened them. "Honestly? I haven't had time to decide yet." He nodded. "Fair. Do you?" she asked. He looked out the window. I never regret telling the truth. Even when it gets me into trouble. Rachel tilted her head. Is that what this trial is really about? Telling the truth? Musk didn't answer directly. You'll see, he said. The SUV rolled through the city, surrounded by a sea of digital billboards, ironically, many advertising Tesla, SpaceX, and Neuralink. Musk's world was everywhere, yet in this moment, it felt so small, confined within the darkened vehicle, shared only between two people who barely knew each other. That evening, Rachel returned to her hotel room with an aching back and a spinning mind. She tossed her blazer onto the bed and stared at the ceiling. Somewhere in the next room, a TV was tuned to the news. Musk's face filled the screen. A defiant Elon Musk fires back at Judge Whitmore, the anchor said. Supporters hail him as a visionary, while critics call him reckless and dangerous. The trial continues tomorrow. Rachel turned it off. She sat at the desk and opened her laptop, clicking into a private folder marked Red File. Inside were documents her mentor had collected before the accident, files the public hadn't seen. Internal memos, early AI behavior logs, whistleblower statements. The allegations were damning, but only if you didn't look deeper. Because within those same files were glimpses of something no one else was talking about, proof that Musk's AI models had been used to detect and flag war crimes in real time. Not for profit. Not for power. But because no one else had the tools to do it. Rachel leaned back in her chair. Was this why they wanted him silenced? Not because he was dangerous, but because he had built something that challenged global power. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, be careful who you trust. She stared at it, heartbeat quickening. Had someone accessed her laptop? Had she been too obvious in court? She stood quickly, shut the curtains, and locked the door. The paranoia felt sudden, irrational. But something deep inside told her it wasn't. The next morning, the courtroom was no less hostile. Judge Whitmore avoided eye contact with Musk. The prosecution leaned in hard, presenting evidence with a smugness that made Rachel's blood boil. When they projected lines of AI code and described them as deliberate manipulation, Rachel's fingers twitched, dying to object. But it wasn't time. Not yet. She needed to be precise. Calculated. At recess, Musk leaned over and whispered, "They don't understand what they're looking at." "I know," Rachel said. "And I think they don't want to." "Which means," he said, "it's up to us." She nodded. The challenge was greater than she thought. The truth wasn't just buried, it was being actively buried by people in power. But Rachel wasn't the same girl who grew up in a rusted trailer park in Ohio. She wasn't the same intern who once cried in the bathroom after her first courtroom loss. She had a reason now. A purpose. And for the first time, she believed that maybe she was exactly where she was supposed to be. No longer a spectator. No longer just a legal assistant. She was a defender of something bigger than a name or a company. She was defending the future. And the fight had only just begun. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Rachel Carter was born in a trailer parked behind a shuttered gas station on the edge of Dayton, Ohio. Her mother, Darlene, had worked 3 jobs to keep the lights on, 2 of which paid in cash and were never listed on tax returns. Rachel didn't meet her father until she was 17, and even then, she only spoke to him through bulletproof glass during a prison visit she hadn't initiated. Her earliest memories weren't colored by toys or cartoons but by the rattling hum of coin-operated laundromats and the sour smell of fast food grease clinging to thrift store clothes. School was an escape, not a requirement. She read voraciously, not because someone told her to, but because books were the only way to visit places she couldn't afford to go. Teachers liked her. Principals called her resilient, a word Rachel eventually learned was a polite way of saying, still functioning despite everything. By 15, she was tutoring classmates older than her and writing legal arguments in her journal, pretending to be in a courtroom, making her case to invisible judges. She had no money, no connections, and no backup plan. But she had an iron will and a terrifying clarity about one thing: she would become a lawyer, and she would never be powerless again. Her younger brother, Liam, was the only person she trusted without question. He was brilliant but careless, funny but reckless. Where Rachel was composed and methodical, Liam was fire and instinct. At 18, he dropped out of community college and started coding from their shared bedroom. By 20, he had built an app that used facial recognition to help locate missing persons, and by 22, he was being investigated by the Department of Homeland Security for unauthorized surveillance practices. Rachel had spent weeks untangling the legal mess Liam created, using every ounce of her fledgling law school education to keep him out of jail. He didn't thank her. He just looked her dead in the eye and said, "They're afraid of what comes next." That line never left her. Years later, as she sat in the legal war zone of a federal courtroom defending Elon Musk, those words echoed with startling resonance. She had thought about Liam often since joining the defense team. Musk reminded her of him. Not in demeanor, but in that dangerous clarity, that magnetic pull toward the edge of innovation where no safety nets existed. Her path to this moment wasn't clean. After graduating from Columbia Law, Rachel had turned down offers from top-tier firms to work for a mid-sized agency that specialized in tech litigation. Her peers called her insane. "You could be in Manhattan billing 6 figures a month," one had said. But Rachel didn't want glamour. She wanted impact. The firm she chose gave her just enough room to climb but kept her hands dirty, close to the legal trenches. Her cases rarely made headlines, but they made a difference. She defended whistleblowers, negotiated fair licensing for startups, and clashed with patent trolls who tried to sue young developers into silence. Her reputation grew quietly but steadily. She was called smart, stubborn, incorruptible. Then the phone call came. Her mentor, Alan Weiss, had been in a motorcycle accident, cracked ribs, internal bleeding, critical condition. Rachel had just poured coffee when she got the call. She spilled it down her front and didn't even notice. By noon, she was told she'd be stepping in on a federal case that involved one of the most high-profile tech figures in the world, Elon Musk. She thought it was a joke. It wasn't. Alan had been part of a tight, confidential advisory team. The client specifically requested someone with legal expertise in AI and an understanding of neural network privacy. Rachel fit both. Barely. She almost declined. Not because she wasn't ready, but because she didn't want to fail on a stage so large. But then she thought about Liam. About her mother's years of sacrifice. About every moment she'd told herself, "This is what you're meant to do." And so she said yes. The first time she met Musk was not in an office or boardroom. It was in a private holding room attached to the courthouse. He was wearing jeans and a hoodie, eating a protein bar like someone who forgot meals were a thing. He looked tired, distracted. Rachel introduced herself, and he glanced up briefly. "You're Alan's replacement," he said. "Temporarily," she replied. He shrugged. "Everyone's temporary." It wasn't warm, but it wasn't dismissive either. More like he lived at a different frequency and only visited normal conversation occasionally. Still, as the days progressed, Rachel began to notice things. He remembered details with scary precision. He didn't bluff. When he didn't know something, he said so. When he did, he said it exactly once and expected everyone to keep up. He never interrupted. He never condescended. He simply operated like someone who'd stopped caring about being liked and started focusing entirely on being understood. That approach made enemies. Powerful ones. The prosecution was relentless. They painted Musk as a reckless monopolist, a man so obsessed with control he ignored ethical boundaries. They showed internal emails, spun out of context code snippets, and called former employees who spoke bitterly but vaguely. The public narrative was turning. The media loved the fall of giants, and Musk had given them decades of material to work with. But Rachel wasn't swayed. She had read the unredacted files. She had seen the pattern. Musk's AI wasn't designed to manipulate people. It was a Thursday morning when Rachel Carter's phone rang at exactly 7:12 a.m. She was still in her bathrobe, sipping the first of many coffees, her eyes barely focused on the stack of briefs she'd printed out the night before. The caller ID flashed a number she didn't recognize, but something told her to answer. "Rachel Carter," a clipped voice asked. "Speaking. This is Lyle Sherman, managing partner at Weiss & Crane. I believe you've worked under Alan Weiss for the past 18 months. Yes, she said quickly, sitting upright. Is this about Alan? Is he okay? Stable, but he's out of commission. Internal bleeding. They're prepping him for surgery later today. Rachel exhaled slowly, the words sinking in. Alan wasn't just her boss, he was the reason she believed she could make it in law. He saw potential in her when others saw inexperience. I'm sorry to hear that, she said softly. He's a tough guy. He'll pull through, Sherman said. But right now, we need someone to step in on his current case. Rachel leaned forward. Of course. Whatever he needs. There was a beat of silence on the line. This isn't a deposition or client mediation. This is a federal tech case. High profile. In fact, the client is already in Washington. The proceedings start tomorrow morning. Rachel blinked. Wait, tomorrow? He asked for Alan personally. But he's willing to meet the person Alan called his most promising associate. That's you, Carter. You come recommended. She swallowed hard. Who's the client? There was another pause, then the answer landed like a thunderclap. Elon Musk. Rachel laughed, more out of shock than amusement. You're serious? Dead serious. Pack your things. You're flying to DC tonight. Before she could protest, ask questions, or even process, the line went dead. That night, as the plane carved through the clouds above the eastern seaboard, Rachel stared out the window, her mind racing. Elon Musk. The man whose ventures touched nearly every emerging frontier of science and society, space, AI, transport, energy. A genius to some, a tyrant to others. And now, he was facing the government in what could be a precedent-setting lawsuit about ethical boundaries in artificial intelligence. Rachel had read about the case in trade journals. The Department of Justice claimed Musk's AI division had used biometric data collected through an unnamed subsidiary without proper consent. The implications were massive: privacy violations, breaches of interstate tech regulation, potential criminal intent. And she was walking into it blind. She landed at Reagan National Airport just before midnight. A black sedan was waiting. The driver said nothing as he handed her a manila envelope with only 2 words stamped in red across the top: confidential briefing. Inside was a single-page summary, names redacted, and a court schedule with only the initials DM printed in the defendant's column. Rachel barely slept. The next morning, she walked into the DC legal suite wearing her most professional navy pantsuit, clutching a laptop and a leather-bound notepad. She didn't know what to expect. Certainly not what she found. The room was plain, windowless, with white walls and gray chairs. And sitting in the far corner, legs crossed, head buried in a binder, was Elon Musk. In person, he looked less like a billionaire and more like someone who'd been building something alone for too many nights in a row. He looked up when she entered. Rachel Carter? Yes, she said, trying to sound steadier than she felt. He didn't stand. He simply gestured to the seat across from him. Alan said you're smart. I hope he's right. We've got a mess to clean up. I've read the preliminary documents, she began. And they're throwing a net wide enough to trap a whale. The accusations are vague on purpose. They want the jury confused. Musk nodded slowly. They don't want justice. They want control. That line hung in the air. You think this is about AI regulation? She asked. No, he said. I think it's about fear. The people in charge are afraid of what's coming. They don't understand it, so they want to contain it. Rachel considered this. Then we need to make them understand it. Musk gave a thin smile. That's what I'm counting on you for. The first hearing was brutal. The prosecution came out swinging, reading a prepared statement that accused Musk of violating basic principles of informed consent, of treating people's digital lives as fuel for a machine. The courtroom was packed with reporters, legal scholars, and at least 3 sitting senators quietly observing from the back row. Rachel felt every eye on her as she rose to respond. Her voice didn't tremble. Ladies and gentlemen, we are not here to debate whether innovation is dangerous. We are here to determine if it was criminal. There's a difference. Some heads turned. The judge, Whitmore, leaned forward slightly. Musk sat motionless. After the session adjourned, Rachel went back to the legal suite, drained but still burning with purpose. She opened her laptop and pulled up every internal report from Neural Frameworks, Musk's AI division. What she found didn't make the picture any clearer. There were thousands of lines of code, references to pattern detection, optimization loops, cognitive mapping. But more importantly, she found something else, a series of memos marked, classified use only. They referenced humanitarian crises, refugee data, real-time intervention models. It was subtle, buried. But it told a different story than what the prosecution was spinning. Musk wasn't using AI to manipulate. He was using it to see, to scan, to understand events no government could track in real time. And someone didn't want that known. She was still reading when Musk walked in. He watched her for a moment before speaking. You found the refugee models. Why didn't you lead with this? She asked. Because it won't matter if we can't show how they connect to the charges. They'll say it's irrelevant. That it's a distraction. But it's not. Of course it's not. But courtrooms don't always run on truth. They run on narrative. Rachel stared at him. Then we need to change the narrative. He nodded. That's what Alan believed, too. Her throat tightened. I wish he was here. You are. He didn't say it like a compliment. He said it like a fact. Like she needed to hear it. Over the next 3 days, Rachel immersed herself in the case. She cross-referenced documents, interviewed former employees, tracked digital paper trails. She worked 16-hour days, fueled by cold coffee and adrenaline. At night, she called her mother just to hear a familiar voice. Liam texted only once, don't trust anything without a paper trail. Even brilliance leaves footprints. By Friday, she was ready. As she walked into court, head high, briefcase in hand, the press shouted questions she didn't answer. Inside, the tension crackled. The judge eyed her with the same skepticism he gave all young lawyers. Rachel didn't flinch. The government introduced a witness, a former project manager turned whistleblower. He spoke carefully, methodically. We were pushed to hit data benchmarks. The AI wasn't selective. It was harvesting anything it could. No ethical framework. Just volume. Rachel stood. Did you personally raise concerns about this during your employment? Yes. And did you receive a direct response from Mr. Musk? No, then how can you be certain he endorsed the practice? He set the tone. He didn't need to say it. Rachel turned to the judge. Your Honor, I'd like to submit documents showing a memo sent by Mr. Musk 3 weeks before this witness resigned, ordering a full compliance audit of data collection protocols. There was a rustle. The courtroom murmured. Whitmore frowned. Motion granted. The jury will take it under advisement. When she sat down, Musk whispered, "You just bought us time." Rachel stared straight ahead. "I'm not buying time. I'm building the foundation." That evening, back in the legal suite, Musk handed her a flash drive. "You'll want to see this." "What is it?" she asked. "The rest of the story." The flash drive was unlabeled, metallic, and cold in Rachel's hand. She stared at it for a long moment before plugging it into her encrypted laptop. The screen blinked, then a folder appeared, Ouroboros_logs. It contained several video files, timestamps stretching over a 6-month period, along with a master document simply labeled, Project Purpose, Internal Eyes Only. Rachel clicked the document first. Her pulse quickened as the file opened and revealed rows of plain text, unadorned but profound in implication. The memo was written by Elon Musk himself, signed with his personal encryption key. It described an experimental AI subsystem codenamed Ouroboros, an advanced, recursive monitoring framework that not only detected patterns but began to interpret social movements at scale. It had been used, quietly and in coordination with a small group of humanitarian NGOs, to track mass displacement events in Central Africa, identify regions of rising food insecurity, and even forecast the outbreak of a political coup 5 days before it happened. It had saved lives. That much was clear. But it had done so by accessing satellite imaging, social media metadata, and encrypted message traffic across dozens of platforms, some of it through public APIs, some through back channels Musk had quietly built through his internet infrastructure. It was legal only in the sense that no one had written laws clear enough to prohibit it. In the wrong hands, it could be disastrous. In the right ones, it was a tool humanity had never known it needed. Rachel watched one of the video logs. It was grainy surveillance footage from a rural refugee checkpoint, overlaid with the AI's annotations in glowing green text. Malnutrition indicators detected. Triage flag raised. Movement patterns suggest risk of cholera outbreak. Recommend immediate deployment of aid. The overlay blinked in real time as aid trucks rerouted via satellite uplink. The log ended with a still image of children receiving bottled water from volunteers wearing neural scanner headbands, another of Musk's experimental tools, used here not to extract data, but to monitor the mental health of displaced minors. Rachel sat back, stunned. This wasn't just defense material. This was a manifesto, a revelation. If the world knew what Musk had built, and what it had already done, the tone of the trial would shift overnight. But that was the danger, wasn't it? Someone didn't want the world to know. "You see the problem now," Musk said quietly from across the room. He wasn't looking at her. He was staring at a television muted in the corner, showing a cable news anchor describing him as a rogue billionaire with no oversight. "This doesn't show criminal activity," Rachel said carefully. "But it does show you operated outside standard international agreements." "Because they don't work," he snapped, finally turning toward her. "They're slow. Bureaucratic. Reactive. We needed to act. So we did. You could have gone public," she said. "Disclosed the project. Found allies. And they would have buried it. Or stolen it. Or classified it until it was too late. Then why give this to me now?" Musk's voice softened. "Because you still believe in the system. And you need to decide whether to fight within it, or break it." The next morning, Rachel didn't sleep. She barely blinked. The implications of what she now knew made her stomach twist with equal parts fear and exhilaration. She showed the files to no one. Not yet. Instead, she spent the early hours outlining a strategy, one that could reframe the narrative without revealing everything. She would use the humanitarian angle. Not Ouroboros directly, but the principles behind it. The prosecution had painted Musk as a data-hoarding oligarch. She would show him as something else entirely, a man who built something dangerous not to gain power, but to save people the rest of the world had ignored. It was risky. But not as risky as the alternative. In court that day, the prosecution introduced a new witness, Dr. Renee Walcott, a former ethics officer at Neural Frameworks. She was sharp, composed, and clearly prepared. The internal culture, she said, discouraged red tape. We were told to move fast. That compliance was always a step behind innovation. And did Mr. Musk directly communicate this to you? The government's attorney asked. Not in so many words. But he set the tone. Everyone knew speed mattered more than legality. Rachel rose from her seat, heels clicking sharply against the marble floor. Dar. Walcott, were you aware of the refugee coordination efforts carried out by Neural Frameworks in cooperation with non-governmental organizations? The prosecution objected immediately. Relevance goes to intent, Rachel countered. If the defendant's AI was used for humanitarian purposes, it challenges the narrative of reckless disregard. Judge Whitmore hesitated, then nodded. I'll allow it. Proceed, but tread carefully, Ms. Carter. Rachel turned back to the witness. Were you aware? Walcott shifted. Yes. But that project was compartmentalized. Was it unethical? It was, unprecedented. We didn't have frameworks in place to evaluate it. So you're not saying it caused harm. You're saying you didn't understand how to measure its impact. Correct. And if it had a net positive effect, if it saved lives, would you say that was relevant to this court's understanding of Mr. Musk's intent? The witness hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. Yes. I suppose it would be. Rachel turned to the judge. Let the record reflect that the witness acknowledges the complexity of ethical evaluation when innovation outpaces legislation. Whitmore gave no expression. But the press gallery scribbled furiously. During the recess, Rachel sat alone in the back corner of the defense suite, chewing on a pen cap and staring at the Ouroboros files. She hadn't told Musk yet, but she knew someone was leaking trial details to the press. Small things, phrases lifted directly from internal memos, now echoed in morning op-eds, someone on the inside didn't want Musk vindicated. She'd narrowed the possibilities to 3, 2 interns and a paralegal, but she had no proof. Not yet. Her phone buzzed. A message from Liam. You're on the right track. But you're not being watched. You're being listened to. Rachel froze. That wasn't his usual tone. She grabbed a burner phone from her briefcase, a precaution Alan had taught her, and texted him directly. What do you mean? The reply came instantly. Your office isn't bugged. Your tech is. Go analog. She stood, unplugged her laptop, and walked to the window, mentally replaying every meeting, every message, every moment since she took the case. Had she said too much? Had she left a trail? Elon walked in then, his presence quiet but unmistakable. You saw something, he said. Rachel turned. We have a mole. Someone feeding the prosecution. Or maybe the press. Or both. He didn't flinch. I expected that. You didn't think to tell me. Would it have changed your strategy? Yes, she snapped. It changes everything. Musk held her gaze. You think the truth is enough. It's not. The truth is only dangerous when someone knows how to weaponize it. Most people don't. You do. That's why I trust you. Rachel's heart pounded. She wasn't sure if it was fear or something more complicated. Admiration, maybe. Or resentment. She wasn't sure anymore. The next day, she submitted a motion to admit a new body of evidence. Emails between Neural Frameworks and a humanitarian coalition working in Sudan. It was her way of edging the Ouroboros revelations into the light, one step at a time. The prosecution objected again. Irrelevant, they argued. An attempt to muddy the waters. But this time, Judge Whitmore frowned. "You've made your case," he said. "But I want to see this material before ruling. Submit sealed documents by end of day." It wasn't a win. But it was movement. That night, Rachel sat at the edge of her hotel bed, staring at her reflection in the window. Below, the city lights flickered like static. Her phone buzzed again, another anonymous number. She didn't answer. Instead, she wrote a single line on the back of a legal pad: "Intent is the bridge between action and judgment." The next time she stood in court, she would cross that bridge. Whether the others followed was no longer up to her. By the time the court reconvened on Monday morning, a storm was already brewing. Outside the courthouse and within it, protesters lined the sidewalks, some waving signs calling Musk a data tyrant, others defending him as a visionary under siege. The press had caught wind of Rachel's sealed filing, and though the contents were undisclosed, speculation ran wild. Headlines screamed phrases like "Musk's secret weapon" and "AI ethics bombshell could reshape the trial." Rachel ignored them all. Her mind was locked on strategy. The night before, she had pulled an all-nighter preparing the next stage of her argument. Every page of evidence had been cross-verified, time-stamped, and placed in sequence. Every potential question the prosecution might ask had been pre-answered in footnotes, rebuttals, or redirect strategy. She'd even rehearsed twice with an empty chair standing in for Judge Whitmore. She wasn't just ready, she was hunting. The first motion on the docket was the admissibility of the humanitarian correspondence. Rachel stood with her notes clutched tightly, though she didn't look at them once. "Your Honor," she said, voice steady, "what this evidence demonstrates is not simply the existence of a humanitarian partnership. It reveals the intent behind Mr. Musk's data framework. It shows a deliberate, measured deployment of AI tools to mitigate suffering, not exploit users." Whitmore stared at her, unmoved. "And the method of collection? Innovative, yes. Controversial, perhaps. But not illegal. There is no statute prohibiting the cross-analysis of open-source metadata when anonymized and utilized for non-commercial humanitarian purposes." The prosecutor leapt from his seat. "That's an overreach, Your Honor. She's trying to introduce ethics as a shield for legality. We're here to determine if the law was broken, not if lives were saved in the process." "I agree," Whitmore said flatly. "But I also recognize that motive is central to criminal liability. The court will admit the evidence under restricted review. Jury will be advised to consider only its relevance to intent, not outcome." A hum spread through the courtroom. Rachel didn't smile. She couldn't afford to. But inside, she felt the first true crack in the wall they'd been pounding against. The jury was listening. And more importantly, the judge had just given her a window. The prosecution, perhaps sensing momentum slipping, brought out its most polished weapon, Assistant Director Caleb Hartwell from the Federal Office of Cyber Integrity. Hartwell was sharp, photogenic, and spoke like a TED Talk in human form. He wore his credentials like armor, and his testimony was meant to obliterate any notion of good faith on Musk's part. Mr. Musk's companies, collectively, represent a vertically integrated surveillance infrastructure, Hartwell declared. One man with access to private satellites, facial recognition, AI-based behavioral forecasting, and now neural inputs. That level of power without federal oversight is unprecedented. Dangerous. Dangerous to whom? Rachel asked, standing for cross-examination. Hartwell turned, measured. To democratic systems. To public trust. Has Mr. Musk ever been charged with manipulating an election? Not yet. Has he sold personal data to foreign entities? Not to our knowledge. Has he ever used these tools to target citizens for commercial gain? We have no proof of that. Then your concern is not his actions, but his potential. Yes, Hartwell admitted. Potential for harm on a scale no government could contain. Rachel paused, then looked at the jury. Ladies and gentlemen, you are being asked to convict a man not for what he's done, but for what others fear he might do. She turned back to Hartwell. Is that justice? Hartwell's jaw tightened, but he didn't reply. Outside, the wind had picked up. A real storm now. Thunder cracked against the courthouse dome. The tension inside matched it. After court adjourned for the day, Rachel returned to the defense suite and collapsed into the nearest chair. Musk was already there, scrolling through something on his tablet. You did well, he said without looking up. Hartwell blinked. He's not the one making the decision, Rachel replied. The jury is. Musk finally looked up. They saw you. That matters. She sighed. It's not enough. Not yet. He tilted his head. Why are you really doing this? She hesitated. Because no one defended my brother when he was punished for building something he didn't fully understand. They called him a hacker. A threat. But he was just trying to help. What happened to him? He disappeared. Went off-grid. Lives in code now, mostly. Won't let anyone get close. Musk nodded slowly. The world punishes minds it doesn't understand. But those minds shape the future. She looked at him then, seeing not just the arrogance and ambition, but the weariness. The isolation that comes with being so far ahead no one can follow. And what if the future turns on you, she asked. Then at least I'll have built something that mattered, he said. That lasted longer than fear. That night, Rachel walked to a quiet park 2 blocks from her hotel. She sat on a damp bench, watched the rain drizzle across the pavement, and called her mother. You sound tired, Darlene said. I am. You also sound like you're finally doing something that scares you for the right reasons. Rachel smiled faintly. I am. Then keep going. The next day brought an unexpected twist. Judge Whitmore called a private sidebar session with both legal teams. No jury. No press. Just words spoken in a room that suddenly felt smaller than it was. I've reviewed the sealed files, he said plainly. And while I understand your argument regarding intent, I am deeply troubled by the scope of data extraction described. Rachel didn't flinch. With respect, Your Honor, scope is not the same as harm. Maybe not. But the law exists to set boundaries, not measure intentions. Then perhaps it's time the law caught up. Whitmore studied her. Careful, Miss Carter. That sounds dangerously close to advocacy. Isn't that what we're here for? The judge leaned back. You have 2 days. Then closing arguments begin. Use them wisely. Rachel left the chamber knowing she was out of time. If she wanted to shift the trial's momentum, it had to happen now. That evening, she and Musk sat in the suite alone, a single lamp casting long shadows across the conference table. We need to go public, she said. Not with everything. But with enough to force a new narrative. Not a defense. A challenge. To what? To the system trying to shut you down without ever admitting it doesn't understand what you built. That would break protocol. It might also win the trial. Musk thought for a long time. Then he nodded. One condition, I speak. Rachel froze. Directly. Unscripted. One final testimony. No lawyers. No filters. That's incredibly risky. So is the truth. The next morning, Rachel filed a formal motion requesting a special hearing to allow direct testimony by the defendant under limited cross-examination. The prosecution objected violently. This is a publicity stunt. But Judge Whitmore, to everyone's surprise, approved it. Let's hear what Mr. Musk has to say. Court will reconvene at 9 a.m. As word spread, the media frenzy exploded. Cameras gathered at every courthouse entrance. Commentators speculated wildly about what Musk might reveal. Some claimed it would be a confession. Others predicted a bombshell that would collapse the case. Rachel prepared alone. Musk didn't ask for help. He simply arrived, as he always did, quiet, underdressed, but radiating intent. At 9 a.m., the courtroom filled to capacity. Every seat, every wall, every corner was packed. Judge Whitmore looked over his glasses. "Mr. Musk. You may proceed." Elon Musk stood slowly, walked to the front, and turned to face the room. His voice, when it came, was calm and low but carried like thunder. "We are standing at a crossroads. One path leads to control. The other, to chaos. But neither will work unless we first face a truth no one here wants to admit: our laws were not designed for what comes next. Artificial intelligence doesn't care about our categories. It doesn't stop at borders. It doesn't wait for approvals. It moves." He looked at the jury. "I didn't build a machine to spy on you. I built a mirror. A system that sees what we miss. That warns us when we fail to act. Yes, it's powerful. So is every tool humanity has ever feared before understanding it. Fire. Electricity. The internet. I don't expect you to like what I've built. But I ask you to understand why I built it. Because no one else would." The room was silent. Every breath held. Rachel watched the jury. One woman clutched her necklace. Another leaned forward, hands steepled. Whitmore broke the silence. "Thank you, Mr. Musk. The court will reconvene tomorrow for closing arguments." As Musk sat down beside her, Rachel whispered, "That might have been the most dangerous thing you've ever done." Musk replied without looking at her. "Not yet. But it will be." The silence in the courtroom after Elon Musk's statement felt like a vacuum, as if even air had paused to consider the implications. Rachel didn't say a word during the entire walk back to the defense suite. Neither did Musk. The hallway, usually buzzing with interns, paralegals, and buzzing phones, was eerily quiet. Cameras still flashed in the distance. Rachel could see the reporters through the glass lobby wall, practically clawing to get a quote, a comment, anything. But all she gave them was a stare that said, "Wait." Back in the suite, she locked the door and turned to Musk. "They're going to come for you harder tomorrow." He nodded once. "Then we fight harder." "You went off script." "There was no script. Not for this." Rachel paced the room, her nerves coiling tightly. "You just admitted the system is broken. In court. On record. Do you understand what they're going to do with that? You gave them every soundbite they wanted. Every confirmation that you believe you're above the rules." Musk sat, hands clasped in front of him, looking almost meditative. "I didn't say I was above the rules. I said the rules are obsolete." Rachel stopped. "They won't hear that nuance. Not the jury. Not the media. Not the judge. But they'll remember it. We don't need memory, we need a verdict." There was a pause, then Musk looked up. "Do you believe what I said?" The question caught her off guard. She opened her mouth, but no answer came. Did she? She believed he had built something extraordinary. She believed his intentions weren't malevolent. But believing he was right about the system, about the laws, about acting outside them. That was a much heavier thing to carry. "I believe you're not the villain they say you are," she finally replied. "And I believe the truth should matter in a courtroom. But I also believe we're playing in their arena, and you just poked the lion in the eye." Musk gave a faint smile. Sometimes the lion needs to be reminded it's not the only predator in the jungle. Rachel didn't sleep that night. She sat at her desk rereading every transcript, every piece of evidence, organizing her notes for closing arguments. She knew the prosecution would lean hard on Musk's words. They'd frame it as arrogance, as proof of guilt, of disregard for ethical frameworks. She had to be ready. At 4:17 a.m., she wrote the first line of her closing: "Fear is a powerful motivator, but it is not a substitute for justice." It wasn't flashy. But it was true. She built her argument like a fortress, fact by fact, brick by brick. Intent. Use case. Public good. She didn't mention Ouroboros by name, but she leaned heavily on the humanitarian outcomes of Musk's AI tools. She framed him not as a rogue genius, but as someone willing to take risks when others stalled. And more importantly, she stressed that laws were meant to protect people, not to stop progress. That by punishing Musk for being ahead, the government was sending a dangerous message to every innovator: wait until the system gives you permission, even if it costs lives. The sun rose slowly over D.C., casting a burnt orange glow over the dome of the courthouse. The city was waking up, but for Rachel, the adrenaline never let her rest. When she stepped into court that morning, dressed in black, hair tied back, she looked like someone going into battle. The courtroom was filled to capacity again. This time, the mood was volatile. Reporters whispered behind notepads. The jury looked fatigued but attentive. Judge Whitmore sat stiffly, almost bracing himself. The prosecution was first. Assistant U.S. Attorney Dennis Sloan strode to the front with calm intensity. He was deliberate, rehearsed, methodical. "This case is not about technology," he began. "It's about trust. It's about whether one man, no matter how brilliant, has the right to override the boundaries set by democratic society." He gestured toward Musk. "Mr. Musk wants you to believe he's misunderstood. That he saved lives. That his ends justify his means. But I ask you this: what happens when someone with this much power stops trying to save lives, and decides to use it for control? Will we only then say, we should have stopped him when we had the chance?" Sloan's argument was elegant, persuasive, and loaded with implication. He presented Musk as the potential threat that laws were designed to prevent. And then, with subtle precision, he replayed clips from Musk's unscripted testimony. Not the full speech, just the lines that sounded most defiant. "The law exists to set boundaries," Sloan echoed. "And this man has told you, plainly, he believes those boundaries no longer apply to him." The effect was chilling. When Sloan returned to his seat, the courtroom was dead silent. Rachel rose, picked up her notes, and walked to the center. She didn't speak right away. Instead, she looked at each juror, meeting their eyes one by one. "I'm not going to ask you to like Elon Musk," she began. "I'm not going to ask you to admire him. What I am going to ask is that you separate your feelings about him from the facts of this case." She took a slow breath. "There are people in this world who change things, who disrupt the way we understand systems, tools, boundaries. They're not always polite about it. They don't always wait to be told what's allowed. But that doesn't make them criminals. It makes them visionaries." She gestured to the screen behind her, where documents showed Musk's internal memos about safety protocols, humanitarian outcomes, third-party audits. "You've seen the evidence. Not speculation. Not fear. Evidence. That what was built was not weaponized. That no one was harmed. That lives were saved." She stepped forward. "The government wants you to make an example out of Elon Musk. But ask yourself, what kind of example are we setting if we punish someone for doing the right thing too early?" Her voice caught slightly, but she held it. Laws change. Sometimes they evolve because someone dares to step outside them and show us where they fail. She paused, then added, "Justice doesn't mean punishing what we fear. It means protecting what's right." Then she closed her binder, walked back to her seat, and sat beside Musk. He didn't speak. He just gave her a slow nod. It was done. The jury was dismissed for deliberation. The wait began. An hour passed. Then 2. Then 5. The sun began to set. Reporters paced. Staff buzzed. Rachel sat stone still, not moving, barely breathing. Her phone vibrated twice, but she didn't check it. Around 8:41 p.m., the buzzer rang. Jury has reached a verdict, came the announcement. Rachel's heart hammered. Musk remained completely calm, hands folded in his lap. The courtroom filled again, nearly bursting. Every seat. Every wall. Even the gallery stairs. Judge Whitmore returned. Will the defendant please rise? Musk stood. Rachel beside him. The jury forewoman, a stern-looking woman in her 60s with kind eyes, stood holding a small white envelope. On the count of unlawful data acquisition, we find the defendant, not guilty. A gasp rippled through the room. On the count of willful negligence in data privacy protocol, we find the defendant, not guilty. The room remained frozen. On the count of violation of federal AI ethics compliance, not guilty. Rachel closed her eyes. She didn't cheer. She didn't collapse. She just exhaled, like a diver returning from depths far too deep. Musk didn't move. He simply nodded. Judge Whitmore cleared his throat. This court recognizes the complexity of this case. While we find no criminal liability, we strongly recommend further review of federal legislation governing emerging technologies. This trial is closed. Gavel. Done. Outside, the media erupted. Flashbulbs. Microphones. Questions screamed. Mr. Musk, do you feel vindicated? Ms. Carter, were you surprised by the verdict? What's next for AI regulation? Musk gave no statement. Rachel simply held up a hand, guiding him through the chaos. They slipped into a waiting car, the doors closing behind them like the end of a chapter. As the car pulled away, Musk finally spoke. You did well. We did well, she corrected. You're not alone in this. Not anymore. He looked out the window. They'll come again. New charges. New fear. This was just round 1. Then we'll be ready. Rachel turned to look out the other side. The city passed them by in streaks of gold and steel. It was still raining. Quiet, steady. But this time, it didn't feel like a storm. It felt like renewal. The morning after the verdict, headlines exploded across every major outlet. Musk acquitted in landmark AI case, blared CNN. Tech savior or legal loophole, questioned the Washington Post. Fox ran with Elon walks, what it means for America, while smaller tech blogs dove into the deeper layers, what is Project Ouroboros, and AI ethics trial sets precedent for the next century. Rachel sat at the edge of her hotel bed, CNN muted, her phone vibrating non-stop with texts, missed calls, and press inquiries. She ignored them all. Her inbox was a war zone. Requests for interviews, analysis, academic conferences, law schools offering guest lectureships. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like the calm before a second, subtler storm. Elon Musk hadn't called. Hadn't messaged. Hadn't said a word since they stepped out of the courthouse. She assumed he was back at his private residence, likely surrounded by a small battalion of engineers and internal advisors. Musk never stood still. He was already thinking 3 steps ahead, beyond the trial, beyond the verdict. But Rachel couldn't move on quite yet. Not without answers. She needed to know why someone inside their own team had tried to sabotage the defense. And she had a strong suspicion about who. She left the hotel around 8 a.m., coat tight around her frame, and walked to the defense firm's temporary D.C. office. It was quiet, nearly deserted, except for Marcia, the paralegal she trusted throughout the trial. A little too quiet. Hey, Rachel said casually, walking into the suite. Didn't expect anyone here today. Marcia looked up from her computer. Didn't think you'd be in either. Figured you'd be celebrating. Couldn't sleep. Mind's still racing. Well, you earned the win. Seriously. You're all over the news. Rachel smiled. Yeah, I've seen. Actually. I wanted to ask you something. Shoot. Rachel walked slowly to the corner of the office where her temporary desk was. She picked up her briefcase, still sealed with the evidence lock, and placed it on the table. You've been working with me since day one. I trusted you with all of it. Strategy, filings, access to files. Marcia blinked. Yeah. I mean, of course. Which is why I'm confused. Rachel turned to her. How did the Washington Ledger quote a direct phrase from a sealed brief that was never filed in court? Marcia's eyes twitched. I don't know. Maybe someone from the court leaked it. The court didn't have it. Only you, me, and Musk saw the full draft. Rachel's voice was calm, but razor sharp. So I'm going to ask you once, and only once, did you send anything to the press? Marcia stood, clearly rattled. I don't know what you think you're accusing me of, but I've worked my ass off for this team. I never leaked anything. Then you won't mind handing me your phone, Rachel said quietly. Now. Marcia hesitated. For a second too long. Then, she pulled it out and placed it on the desk. Rachel opened the messaging app. A string of encrypted messages to an unknown number sat open. Code phrases. Snippets of internal discussion. Even screenshots. You know how I found out? Rachel said, holding up her own burner phone. The person you were feeding information to tried to contact me by mistake. Sent a message meant for you. That was 2 nights ago. Marcia didn't say anything. Her silence was an admission. Why? Rachel asked. Were you paid? Pressured? Marcia's eyes flashed. I believed the public had a right to know. You were whitewashing him. Turning Musk into some kind of savior when the guy clearly believes he's above law and order. So you decided to spin your own version of justice? Someone had to. You lawyers are all the same, you bend truth to fit your agenda. I didn't sell information. I exposed it. You compromised a federal trial. No, Marcia snapped. I made sure people saw who he really was. Rachel didn't say anything more. She simply walked to the office door and opened it. You're done. I'm notifying the ethics board and the judge. Whether they charge you or not isn't up to me. But you'll never step inside another courtroom under my name. Marcia's eyes went wide. You can't do that, I already did. As Marcia stormed out, Rachel collapsed into her chair, physically trembling. It wasn't just the betrayal. It was the weight of knowing how close everything had come to unraveling. One wrong detail, one badly timed leak, and the entire trial could have shifted. When the adrenaline faded, she finally checked her phone. One message stood out. From an unknown number, you did the right thing. Come to the observatory. Midnight. She didn't need a name to know who it was. Elon Musk had always preferred off-the-grid meetings. Somewhere he could see the sky. Rachel drove herself to the old observatory on the edge of the city. It was mostly abandoned now, used occasionally by amateur astronomers or grad students with grant money. Tonight, it was empty, except for him. Musk stood near the telescope, jacket open to the cold wind, staring up at the stars. You still watch them, she said softly. Always. He turned to her. The stars don't change. The world does. We found the leak. It was Marcia. I know. Rachel raised an eyebrow. You knew. She used a company laptop. We have counter-surveillance in place. I didn't confront her because you needed to. It had to be your line to draw. You played me. No. I trusted you to see it through. She exhaled. What now? Musk turned his gaze back to the stars. Now the real work begins. Congress will come after me. International regulators will try to shut down every open-source node in my network. The moment I won, I became their worst-case scenario. So you're preparing for war? No, he said. I'm preparing for the next phase of peace. But I'll need allies. That's why I'm here. That's why you stayed, Musk replied. You don't just argue cases. You understand why they matter. Rachel leaned against the metal railing. I'm not sure I want to live in a world built on exceptions. Neither do I. That's why I want to build one where the exception becomes the standard. You mean a world where intent matters more than rules? A world where rules evolve as fast as the problems they're meant to solve. Silence stretched between them. The sky overhead glittered with stars, distant, cold, and timeless. You know, Rachel said, I thought winning this case would bring closure. Instead, it feels like opening a door I didn't know existed. That's how every revolution starts, Musk said. Not with certainty. With questions. Rachel looked at him. Then ask me one. Will you help me build it? She didn't answer right away. But when she finally spoke, her voice was clear. Yes. But on one condition. What's that? No more secrets. Musk nodded. No more secrets. They stood in silence, not as lawyer and client, not as chess pieces in a public spectacle, but as two minds staring into the infinite, ready to shape what came next. The verdict had ended one chapter. But the real story was just beginning. The days after the verdict passed in a blur, but Rachel's world transformed with a speed she hadn't anticipated. Elon Musk's invitation wasn't just a gesture, it was the opening of a door to a shadowy, uncharted frontier where law, technology, and power collided in unpredictable ways. Their meeting at the observatory marked the beginning of an alliance that would push Rachel into arenas she'd never imagined. Back in the firm's quiet conference room, she reviewed the list Elon had given her, a series of names, scientists, lawmakers, hackers, journalists, all carefully selected to become part of what Musk called the vanguard. This was no ordinary coalition. It was a movement designed to influence the future of technology regulation, human rights, and AI ethics simultaneously. Elon's vision was audacious. He wanted to transform the way governments approached emerging tech, not by playing defense, but by establishing new, adaptable frameworks before chaos could erupt. Rachel read through the profiles, each bio a blend of brilliance and risk-taking. People who had already burned bridges in their industries for daring to push boundaries. We're not just lawyers and engineers, Elon said during their briefing. We're architects of tomorrow. Rachel swallowed hard. Tomorrow looks messy. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Change always does. For weeks, Rachel worked tirelessly. She drafted policy proposals, coordinated secret meetings, and debated legal and ethical boundaries with members of the vanguard. The press still chased Musk relentlessly, scrutinizing every move. Yet, behind the scenes, Rachel discovered that many influential figures sympathized with Musk's cause. Politicians tired of being reactive, tech leaders fearful of stifling innovation, and activists who wanted transparent AI that protected human dignity. The more Rachel immersed herself, the clearer it became that the old systems were inadequate for the challenges ahead. Regulatory agencies were slow, bureaucratic, and often reactive instead of proactive. Elon's assertion that the law was obsolete wasn't arrogance, it was a call to action. But with progress came resistance. Powerful corporate interests saw Musk's initiatives as threats to their profits. Certain lawmakers feared the loss of control. And factions within the tech community questioned Musk's motives and methods. Tensions simmered beneath the surface, occasionally erupting in harsh media battles or behind-the-scenes lobbying. Rachel learned to navigate these volatile waters with care, balancing transparency with discretion. One night, after a marathon session drafting a white paper on dynamic AI governance, Rachel received an encrypted message on her secure phone: "We need to talk." Off record. Midnight. The Pier. It was from Ava, a former tech journalist turned whistleblower and a key member of the vanguard. Rachel's pulse quickened. Ava was known for digging into stories that governments and corporations wanted buried. Meeting at the pier was classic cloak and dagger, but Rachel had come to expect nothing less. The pier was deserted, shrouded in mist and salt air. Ava appeared from the shadows, eyes sharp, expression guarded. "I got your message," Rachel said quietly. Ava nodded. "We're in deeper than you think." "What do you mean?" "The leaks, the sabotage, the pressure on Musk. Someone inside the vanguard is working against us." Rachel's breath caught. "But who?" "Not sure yet. But it's not Marcia. This is bigger. Someone with access to classified info and connections to the highest levels." Rachel clenched her fists. "How do we fight that?" Ava handed her a small data drive. "We start here. These files outline a covert campaign to undermine Musk's initiatives, false narratives, staged protests, manipulated media. It's a war disguised as dissent." Rachel studied the drive. "Who's behind it?" "Hard to say. But the fingerprints lead back to a shadow network tied to some of the most influential power brokers in D.C. Rachel felt the weight of the revelation settle on her shoulders. "This changes everything." "It does. And it means we can't trust anyone, not fully." For days after, Rachel barely slept. The constant threat of betrayal gnawed at her. She fortified her communications, double-checked every meeting, and urged the vanguard to tighten security. Trust, she realized, was the most fragile resource they had. Meanwhile, Musk's public persona became a battleground. Opponents launched character assassinations, painting him as reckless, egotistical, and a danger to national security. Supporters rallied fiercely, organizing rallies and online campaigns defending his vision. Rachel found herself in the eye of the storm, a reluctant public figure. She was invited to panel discussions, asked for interviews, and even received a guest lecture invitation from a top law school. In all of it, she spoke carefully, balancing defense with critique, ambition with caution. "Innovation without oversight is chaos," she said during one debate. "But oversight without understanding is tyranny." The phrase resonated, but didn't settle the debates. Then came the unexpected twist. An anonymous whistleblower within the government leaked internal memos showing some officials actively sabotaging efforts to regulate AI responsibly, instead favoring slow rollbacks and vague rules. The scandal rocked Washington. Musk's warnings about outdated laws gained new urgency. Rachel knew the tipping point was near. The vanguard had to act decisively. They planned a summit, secret, highly secure, bringing together allies from industry, government, and advocacy groups. The goal was to draft a comprehensive framework that balanced innovation, safety, and ethics. As the day approached, Rachel felt the enormity of the moment. This was more than a legal battle. It was a crossroads for humanity's relationship with technology. In the summit's opening moments, Elon addressed the attendees. "We stand on the edge of a new era," he said, voice steady but passionate. "The choices we make here will define the future, not just for us, but for generations to come." Rachel watched him, remembering the defiant man who insulted the judge months ago. The same man who now stood humbled by responsibility. Over the next 3 days, debates raged late into the night. Questions of privacy, control, transparency, and power sparked fierce arguments. Rachel facilitated discussions, drawing on her legal expertise to bridge divides. Slowly, consensus emerged around principles that honored both progress and protection. When the summit closed, the final document, the new code, was unveiled. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. Rachel felt a surge of hope. The road ahead would be long and hard, but they had laid the foundation for something revolutionary. As the attendees dispersed, Musk pulled Rachel aside. "You did well," he said quietly. "Better than I imagined." She smiled tiredly. "It's just the beginning." He nodded. "And I wouldn't want anyone else by my side." Outside, the city glittered under the night sky, alive with possibility. Rachel realized then that the story that started with an insult in a courtroom had evolved into a movement, one that would test the limits of law, ethics, and human ambition. But she was ready. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The morning after the summit's success, Rachel felt an unusual mix of exhaustion and adrenaline coursing through her veins. The new code had been signed by key stakeholders, but she knew the true challenge was still ahead, transforming these lofty principles into enforceable laws. The corridors of power in Washington were notoriously slow and tangled, and many were quietly resisting change. As she sipped her black coffee in the firm's downtown office, her phone buzzed with a secure message: "Meet me. 3 p.m. rooftop. Important." It was Elon. His messages were rarely this vague, and the tone suggested urgency. At exactly 3 p.m., Rachel made her way to the skyscraper rooftop, where Elon was already waiting, his eyes scanning the horizon like a general surveying a battlefield. "Glad you could make it," he said without preamble. "We have a problem." Rachel frowned. "What kind of problem?" "Someone's leaked details of our summit to the media." "Not just any outlet, someone planted a story accusing us of orchestrating a covert surveillance state." Rachel's heart sank. "But that's the opposite of everything we stand for." Elon's gaze hardened. "Exactly. It's a calculated move to discredit us, stir public fear, and kill momentum." She stepped closer, the city breeze whipping around them. "Do you know who?" Elon shook his head. "Not yet. But I have a suspicion." Over the next hours, Rachel and Elon sifted through data, tracking the digital breadcrumbs left by the leak. It pointed toward a shadowy faction embedded within one of the federal agencies tasked with tech oversight. A faction resistant to change, threatened by Musk's vision, and willing to play dirty to maintain the status quo. "They're desperate," Elon muttered, staring at the screen filled with red flags and encrypted chats. "Desperate people do reckless things." Rachel's mind raced. "We need to expose them, but carefully. One misstep and they could bury us with false accusations or worse." Elon nodded. "That's why I want you to lead the legal front. You're the one with the credibility and the strategy." Over the following weeks, Rachel immersed herself in the investigation, balancing her duties with the growing public battle. The media frenzy intensified, with conspiracy theories swirling like wildfire. Each day brought a new wave of disinformation campaigns aimed at destabilizing the vanguard and sowing distrust among allies. Rachel found herself caught in a web of political intrigue, where every ally had to be questioned, and every word scrutinized. Late one night, as she prepared for a crucial testimony before a congressional committee, she received an unexpected visit. Ava, the whistleblower from the peer meeting, appeared at her door, face pale but determined. "We found something," Ava whispered urgently. "Proof of a Black Ops operation designed to sabotage the new code and frame Musk as a security threat." Rachel's pulse quickened. "Can you show me?" Ava handed over a series of encrypted files. "This isn't just a leak, it's an active campaign involving surveillance, false arrests, and data manipulation." Rachel scrolled through the evidence, feeling the weight of the conspiracy pressing down on her. "This changes the game," she said quietly. "We have to bring this to light." The next day's congressional hearing was a high-stakes arena. Rachel presented the evidence meticulously, navigating hostile questions and veiled threats from skeptical lawmakers. Elon sat behind her, calm but watchful. The testimony sent shockwaves through the political establishment. Some committee members expressed outrage, others attempted to downplay the revelations. Rachel sensed the divide, between those clinging to old power structures and those ready to embrace a new paradigm. Outside the hearing room, protesters clashed with supporters, reflecting the nation's polarized mood. The media dubbed it the battle for tech's soul. Despite the chaos, Rachel's resolve strengthened. She knew the stakes weren't just about Elon Musk or even AI regulation, they were about shaping a future where technology served humanity without becoming a tool of oppression. Weeks turned into months. The investigation deepened, uncovering layers of corruption and covert operations aimed at maintaining control over emerging technologies. Musk's enemies grew more brazen, launching personal attacks and attempting legal maneuvers to derail his projects. Yet, amidst the turmoil, Rachel witnessed unexpected moments of solidarity. Former rivals extended tentative alliances, grassroots activists organized support networks, even some government officials quietly shifted their stance. One evening, after a particularly grueling strategy session, Elon and Rachel stood on the rooftop again, looking out over the city lights. "You've changed everything," Elon said softly. "Without you, I don't know where we'd be." Rachel smiled wearily. "We're only halfway there." Elon nodded. "Halfway to a world where innovation and ethics walk hand in hand." As the stars blinked above, Rachel felt a renewed sense of purpose. The road ahead would be long and uncertain, but she was ready to fight, for justice, for truth, and for the future. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Rachel woke early to the buzzing of her phone, the screen lighting up with an unknown number. Without hesitation, she answered. "Rachel, it's Ava," the voice whispered urgently. "We have to move fast. The leak has escalated, there's a plan to detain Elon on fabricated charges. They want to silence him before he can testify next week." Rachel's heart pounded. Who? The same faction from the agency? Yes. And they're backed by shadowy players from the corporate world. This isn't just politics, it's a full-scale operation. She hung up, the weight of the news sinking in. Rachel knew this was more than just a legal battle now, it was a fight for survival. She immediately called Elon, who was in a meeting with his core team. When she briefed him, his usually impassive face hardened. "They've crossed a line," he said. "No more games." Rachel gathered the vanguard for an emergency session. The room was tense, filled with the hum of whispered concerns and the click of laptops as evidence was reviewed. "We need a strategy," Rachel said. "One that protects Elon, exposes the conspirators, and ensures the new code isn't buried." Elon nodded. "I want to go public with everything. No more hiding in the shadows." "That's risky," Rachel cautioned. "It could provoke them to act faster." "I'm willing to take that risk," he said. "We need the world on our side." Over the next few days, the team prepared a comprehensive dossier, combining legal documents, whistleblower testimonies, and leaked intelligence. Rachel coordinated with trusted journalists willing to publish the findings responsibly. The story broke like a thunderclap: Elon Musk targeted in covert government corporate conspiracy. Public reaction was explosive. Supporters flooded social media with calls to protect Musk and reform technology oversight. Critics accused him of playing the victim. Lawmakers demanded investigations. Meanwhile, Rachel worked tirelessly behind the scenes, organizing legal defenses and coordinating with security experts to safeguard Elon. As the pressure mounted, strange incidents began: surveillance of Rachel's apartment, suspicious vehicles near Musk's properties, and anonymous threats. The line between legal fight and espionage blurred. One night, Rachel received a coded message directing her to a safe house outside the city. There, Ava greeted her with grim news: "We've confirmed that the conspiracy includes operatives inside the Department of Justice." Rachel's jaw tightened. "We need allies at the highest levels." "There's one person you should meet," Ava said. The following day, Rachel found herself in a secure government building, face-to-face with Senator Carla Mendez, a rising political star known for her advocacy of tech transparency. Mendez listened carefully as Rachel laid out the evidence. "If this is true, it's a constitutional crisis," the senator said. "You'll have my support." With Mendez backing, the investigation gained momentum. Congressional hearings were scheduled, and an independent task force was formed. Elon's scheduled testimony was postponed for security reasons, but his message resonated loudly: technology must be harnessed ethically, and those who abuse power must be held accountable. As the legal battles unfolded, Rachel noticed a shift in public sentiment. People were awakening to the complexities of AI, privacy, and corporate influence. Grassroots movements demanding reform grew rapidly. Despite the chaos, moments of humanity shone through. During a televised interview, Rachel was asked what kept her going. "Hope," she answered simply. "Hope that justice can prevail, that transparency can win, and that the future can be brighter." One evening, after a long day in the courtroom, Elon and Rachel met quietly at the same observatory where their journey had deepened. The stars above seemed unchanged, but everything below had transformed. "Do you ever regret stepping into this?" Rachel asked. Elon smiled faintly. "Every day. But I also know that doing nothing wasn't an option." Rachel nodded. "We're fighting more than a legal battle. We're fighting for the soul of progress." "And we're not alone," Elon said. "The world is watching." As the city lights flickered beneath them, Rachel realized that their fight was no longer just about one man or one trial, it was about a movement that would define the very future of humanity. And she was ready to see it through, no matter the cost. Rachel sat at her desk late into the night, the glow of her laptop reflecting in her weary eyes. The new code had sparked a wildfire of debate across the nation, but the fight was far from over. The conspiracy that threatened Elon Musk was only the surface of a deeper, more insidious network aiming to control the future of technology, and silence any who dared challenge it. The hearings with Senator Carla Mendez had revealed disturbing details about government insiders colluding with corporate giants to manipulate public opinion and stifle innovation. Rachel knew that exposing them could shatter careers and topple powerful institutions, but the risks were mounting. Her phone buzzed again, this time an encrypted message from an unknown source: "Trust no one. Danger is closer than you think." She felt a chill. The walls seemed to close in as the shadows of betrayal grew darker around her. Meanwhile, Elon remained a figure of public fascination and controversy. His every move was dissected by the media, his tweets analyzed for hidden meanings, his companies targeted with regulatory probes. Yet, through it all, his resolve hardened. During a private meeting, he confided in Rachel, "They want me broken. But breaking me won't stop the revolution." Rachel admired his unyielding spirit but worried about the toll on his mental and physical health. The pressure was relentless. To counter the mounting threats, Rachel expanded the vanguard, bringing in experts from cybersecurity, journalism, and even former intelligence officers. Together, they crafted a multi-layered defense: legal, technological, and public relations. One breakthrough came when Ava uncovered a leaked audio recording implicating high-ranking officials in covert plans to discredit Elon by planting false evidence. The revelation sent shockwaves through the task force. Rachel arranged a secure briefing with Senator Mendez and key allies. "This is our chance," Mendez said firmly. "We must act decisively to bring the truth to light." But before they could strategize further, Rachel received a disturbing call from her sister, Emily. "Rachel, Mom had a stroke," Emily said, voice trembling. Rachel's heart clenched. Family had always been her anchor, but the relentless pressure of the case had kept her distant. She rushed to the hospital, where the sterile white walls and beeping machines offered a stark contrast to the chaos she'd been navigating. Sitting by her mother's bedside, Rachel was flooded with memories of childhood, days filled with laughter, moments of conflict, and the steady love that had shaped her resilience. It was a painful reminder of what she was fighting for, not just the future of technology, but the future of humanity, family, and connection. As days turned into weeks, Rachel balanced the demands of the case with visits to her mother, finding strength in both worlds. Meanwhile, the task force pushed forward, filing motions to unseal documents and subpoena key witnesses. The courtroom became a battleground for truth and deception, where every piece of evidence was contested fiercely. At one pivotal hearing, Rachel faced a formidable opponent, the lead attorney for the Shadow Network, a master of legal maneuvering who sought to discredit her and silence witnesses. The exchange was intense, a chess match of words and wills. Rachel held firm, presenting irrefutable evidence and calling on the weight of justice. The judge, watching closely, seemed swayed by her composure and clarity. Outside the courthouse, protesters gathered, their chants a mix of support and opposition. The nation was divided, yet a growing number recognized that this was more than a legal dispute, it was a defining moment for democracy in the digital age. One evening, Elon called Rachel unexpectedly. "There's something I need to show you," he said cryptically. Meeting him at the SpaceX headquarters, Rachel followed Elon into a secure lab filled with prototypes of advanced AI and sustainable tech. "This is what we're fighting for," Elon explained, his eyes bright with passion. "A future where technology elevates humanity, not controls it." Rachel felt a renewed surge of purpose. Despite the battles, the threats, and the betrayals, the vision remained clear, a world where innovation was guided by ethics, transparency, and respect for human dignity. But the enemy was not idle. The Shadow Network escalated its tactics, leaking misinformation about Rachel's personal life, attempting to fracture the vanguard from within. Trust became a rare commodity. Rachel found solace in small moments, a supportive message from Ava, a shared laugh with Elon, a quiet evening with her family. These anchors kept her grounded amid the storm. As the trial approached its climax, Rachel prepared for the final showdown, a public hearing that could either dismantle the conspiracy or bury it forever. She stood before the mirror, adjusting her blazer, steeling herself. "This is for everyone who believes in truth," she whispered. The courtroom filled with tension as the judge called the session to order. Rachel presented her closing arguments, weaving together the narrative of deception, courage, and hope. She spoke not just as a lawyer, but as a citizen of a world on the brink of transformation. When the verdict was finally delivered, it sent ripples through society. The conspiracy was exposed, and key figures faced justice. The new code gained official recognition, marking a historic shift in how technology and law coexisted. Elon's reputation was restored, and his vision for the future took on new momentum. Rachel felt a wave of relief but knew the journey was far from over. The battle for ethical innovation was ongoing, requiring vigilance and commitment. Standing outside the courthouse, she looked up at the sky, the stars faint but constant. The insult that had ignited this saga was now a distant memory, replaced by a legacy of resilience, truth, and hope. Rachel smiled, ready for whatever came next. The morning air was crisp as Rachel stepped out of her apartment, the city humming softly around her. After the whirlwind of the trial, the public battles, and the relentless media storms, a strange calm had settled over the landscape of technology and governance. Yet Rachel knew better than to mistake calm for peace. The forces that had conspired to silence Elon Musk were still out there, lurking in the shadows, adapting, waiting for their next move. She checked her phone, a message from Elon appeared, "Meeting at the lab." Important. Arriving at SpaceX's research facility, Rachel found Elon pacing near a wall filled with blueprints and digital projections. "We've made progress," he began. "The new code isn't just a framework anymore, it's becoming reality. But there's a new challenge." Rachel's curiosity piqued. "What kind of challenge?" Elon's expression darkened. "The AI we're developing has reached a tipping point. It's learning faster, evolving beyond our expectations. That's good, unless it starts making decisions without ethical oversight." The room fell silent, the weight of responsibility palpable. Rachel understood immediately, the fight wasn't just external anymore. It was internal, between human values and the accelerating pace of technology itself. We need a way to ensure AI remains aligned with humanity, Elon said. And that requires more than laws, it requires transparency, accountability, and a new kind of partnership between humans and machines. Rachel nodded. We've built the legal foundation, but now it's about culture and trust. Over the next weeks, Rachel and Elon spearheaded an initiative that brought together experts from diverse fields, ethicists, engineers, lawmakers, and civil rights advocates, to design a living code of ethics embedded directly into AI systems. This conscious code would adapt as AI evolved, guided by principles that prioritized human dignity, privacy, and fairness. The initiative drew widespread attention, hailed as a groundbreaking step toward responsible innovation. However, as with all progress, resistance emerged. Some corporations saw the code as a threat to profit and control. Political factions argued about regulation and sovereignty. Rachel found herself navigating a delicate balance between optimism and caution. One evening, while preparing a keynote speech for a global tech summit, Rachel received an unexpected visitor, Judge Thompson, the very judge who had insulted Elon early in the saga. The judge looked older, wearied by time but with a hint of respect in his eyes. Rachel, I owe you an apology, he began hesitantly. I underestimated Elon, and I was wrong to dismiss your efforts. Rachel listened quietly as he recounted his change of heart, influenced by the evidence and the courage she and Elon had shown. I've seen what real leadership looks like, he said. And I want to support this new path forward. The gesture was more than symbolic, it marked a shift in the judicial mindset toward embracing innovation with responsibility. Rachel accepted the apology with grace, recognizing that reconciliation was part of healing the fractured system. At the summit, Rachel delivered her speech with passion and clarity. She spoke about the journey, from conflict and insult to collaboration and hope. The audience, a mix of skeptics and believers, responded with thoughtful questions and applause. Elon joined her on stage, his presence grounding the message in real-world impact. Together, they unveiled the initial algorithms of the conscious code, demonstrating how AI could self-regulate according to ethical principles. The moment felt historic, a bridge between technology's potential and humanity's values. Back at her office, Rachel reflected on the years of struggle, the moments of doubt, and the victories won. She thought of her family, especially her mother's recent recovery, and the personal sacrifices made along the way. She realized that the story was not just about Elon Musk or a judge's insult, it was about a collective awakening to the responsibility that comes with power and progress. As night fell, Rachel received a final message from Elon: thank you for standing when it mattered most. The future is ours to shape. She smiled, the words echoing the lesson she had learned: life's toughest challenges often lead to the greatest transformations. The stars outside her window shimmered, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, light could break through. And with that light, a new beginning was possible. The morning sun filtered through the blinds of Rachel's office as she reviewed the latest reports. The implementation of the conscious code had started to ripple through the tech world, influencing AI development companies and policymakers alike. Yet beneath the surface, Rachel sensed unease. The stakes were rising, and not everyone was willing to play by the new rules. Just as the new code had faced fierce opposition, the conscious code too attracted those who saw it as a threat to their power and profits. That day, a secure message arrived on Rachel's phone, marked urgent. It was from Ava. Meet me at the old pier. I have something important. Trust no one. Rachel's heart quickened. The pier was where Ava had first warned her about the conspiracy. The place felt like a shadow of the past, with the cold wind whipping over the water, echoing the tension in Rachel's mind. When she arrived, Ava handed over a data chip, her eyes scanning their surroundings nervously. This contains communications between some AI developers and offshore groups planning to circumvent the conscious code, Ava said. They want to create unregulated AI, untouchable by any laws or ethics. Rachel's jaw tightened. The fight was far from over. They returned to the Vanguard's headquarters to analyze the data. The encrypted files revealed a vast underground network intent on advancing AI without accountability, risking devastating consequences for privacy, security, and even human rights. Rachel understood the magnitude. This was a battle on two fronts, pushing society forward responsibly while defending it against reckless exploitation. Days blurred into nights as the team worked to map the network and prepare evidence for law enforcement. Rachel coordinated with Senator Carla Mendez, who had become a steadfast ally. The senator pushed for emergency hearings to address the rising threat. Meanwhile, Elon focused on strengthening the AI's safeguards, accelerating innovations to detect and neutralize rogue systems. In a rare moment of quiet, Rachel confided in Elon, "Sometimes it feels like we're playing whack-a-mole. The moment we fix one problem, another pops up." Elon nodded thoughtfully. Progress isn't linear. It's a chaotic journey. But every step matters. The pressure intensified when a series of cyber attacks targeted Vanguard's servers and Elon's companies. The attacks aimed to destabilize their work and sow distrust. Rachel felt the personal weight of the threats as anonymous messages warned her to back down. Yet she refused to yield. The legal team, along with cybersecurity experts, traced the attacks back to several fronts, including some state-sponsored entities. The revelations stirred diplomatic tensions, and Rachel found herself at the intersection of law, technology, and international politics. During a tense meeting with global regulators, Rachel argued for coordinated international standards on AI governance. The debates were fierce, but progress was made. In the midst of turmoil, Rachel received unexpected news from her family. Her mother's health had improved significantly. It was a beacon of hope in a turbulent time. Drawing strength from this, Rachel doubled down on her mission. A turning point came when Ava uncovered a mole within the Vanguard itself, someone leaking information to the underground network. The betrayal cut deep. Rachel confronted the traitor in a private meeting, emotions raw but resolute. Why? She demanded. The answer was complex. Fear, greed, and disillusionment. Rachel knew that rebuilding trust would be crucial. She initiated new protocols for transparency within the Vanguard, fostering an environment where loyalty was earned through openness and shared purpose. As the months progressed, the public became increasingly aware of the risks and rewards of AI. Grassroots movements demanded ethical innovation, and lawmakers introduced new bills inspired by the conscious code. Rachel and Elon often spoke at conferences and universities, educating the next generation of leaders and technologists. One evening, after a particularly inspiring talk at a college, Elon pulled Rachel aside. "You've changed the narrative," he said quietly. "From conflict and insult to hope and progress." Rachel smiled, reflecting on the journey. "It's not just about us. It's about everyone who believes in a better future." Together, they watched as young minds debated ethics and innovation, hopeful for what lay ahead. Yet Rachel remained vigilant. She knew the fight for ethical technology was ongoing, a constant balancing act between innovation and responsibility. As she walked home under the stars, Rachel felt the bittersweet truth: every victory carried new challenges, but also new opportunities to build a world where humanity and technology thrive together. The insult that had once sparked the chaos was now a distant memory, overshadowed by a legacy of resilience, courage, and unyielding hope. The morning air was thick with tension as Rachel entered the Vanguard's war room. The latest intelligence reports painted a grim picture. The underground network had expanded, infiltrating new sectors and forming alliances with rogue states and extremist groups. The stakes were escalating beyond national borders. Rachel glanced at Elon, who was already deep in conversation with cybersecurity analysts. His usual calm demeanor was tinged with a rare urgency. "We need to anticipate their next move," Elon said. "If they deploy autonomous AI agents without oversight, it could trigger chaos on a global scale." Rachel nodded, feeling the weight of their responsibility. The team launched into action, coordinating with international agencies and private partners to develop rapid response protocols. Meanwhile, Rachel was called to testify before a newly formed international committee on AI governance. Standing before representatives from dozens of countries, she outlined the perils of unregulated AI and the necessity of global cooperation. Her voice carried the conviction born from years of struggle. Technology knows no borders, she declared. Our solutions must be as interconnected as the systems we seek to regulate. The testimony was met with cautious optimism, but Rachel knew negotiations would be painstaking. Back at Vanguard, Ava discovered disturbing new tactics used by the underground network, AI-driven misinformation campaigns targeting public opinion to sow distrust in the new code and conscious code initiatives. Rachel realized that the battle was no longer only technical or legal, but psychological and social. She coordinated with media experts and influencers to launch a campaign promoting digital literacy and critical thinking, empowering the public to discern truth from manipulation. The campaign gained traction, with schools and communities adopting new curricula focused on AI ethics and media awareness. Meanwhile, Rachel's relationship with Elon deepened, grounded in shared purpose and mutual respect. One late night at SpaceX headquarters, Elon confided, "Sometimes I wonder if all this is worth it. The personal cost, the sacrifices." Rachel reached out, squeezing his hand. "It is worth it. Because without this fight, the future isn't ours to shape, it belongs to fear and control." Their bond became a beacon amid uncertainty, reminding them of the humanity at the heart of their mission. Yet, challenges persisted. An unexpected betrayal rocked the Vanguard when a trusted partner was exposed as a double agent feeding information to the underground network. The revelation shook the team's confidence, but Rachel urged resilience. "We learn, we adapt, we move forward," she said. Security measures were tightened, and new vetting processes implemented. As months passed, the global community slowly coalesced around a shared vision for ethical AI. International agreements were drafted, and collaborative research initiatives launched. Rachel and Elon were invited to advise governments and corporations alike, their journey from conflict to leadership inspiring many. However, Rachel never lost sight of the personal toll. During a quiet moment, she wrote a letter to her mother, expressing gratitude for the strength that family had provided throughout the ordeal. Her mother's recovery continued, a source of hope and healing. One pivotal day, the Vanguard received confirmation that several rogue AI systems had been successfully neutralized through the conscious codes protocols. The victory was celebrated as a testament to the power of cooperation and ethical innovation. Yet, Rachel reminded the team, this is only the beginning. Our work must continue. The chapter closed with Rachel standing before a crowd at a global summit, her voice steady and inspiring. "We are the stewards of the future," she proclaimed. "Let us lead with courage, compassion, and integrity." The applause echoed, a resounding affirmation that the fight sparked by an insult had blossomed into a movement defining a new era, where technology and humanity walked hand in hand toward a hopeful horizon. The atmosphere in the Vanguard headquarters was charged with a mix of anticipation and exhaustion. Months of relentless effort had brought the movement to a critical juncture. The new code and conscious code initiatives had begun reshaping industry standards and governmental policies, but Rachel and Elon knew the most challenging battles lay ahead. They were facing opponents not just in courts and boardrooms, but within the very fabric of society: fear, misinformation, and resistance to change. One morning, Rachel received an unexpected visit from Senator Carla Mendez. The senator, once a formidable skeptic, now stood as a staunch ally. "Rachel," she said, her voice steady, "we have an opportunity to enshrine the principles we've fought for into international law. But it will require unprecedented cooperation." Rachel understood the stakes. This was more than legislation, it was a chance to build a global framework that could safeguard humanity's future. Over the following weeks, Rachel and her team worked tirelessly alongside diplomats, legal experts, and technologists. Negotiations were delicate, with each country balancing sovereignty against collective security. Elon remained a pivotal figure, leveraging his influence to unite stakeholders across sectors. Amid the political whirlwind, Rachel found moments of reflection. She remembered the insult that had ignited this saga, the judge's harsh words that could have ended Elon's career. Instead, those words became a catalyst for change. Rachel's journey had transformed from defending one man to defending an ideal. In quiet conversations with Elon, they discussed the personal costs, the sleepless nights, strained relationships, and public scrutiny. Yet, they also celebrated the bonds forged in adversity and the resilience of the human spirit. The draft treaty, dubbed the Global AI Accord, began to take shape. It outlined principles for transparency, ethical standards, and mechanisms for enforcement. The accord represented a collective commitment to ensure technology served humanity, not the other way around. However, opposition remained fierce. Powerful interests feared losing control and influence. Rachel faced intense lobbying and public attacks designed to undermine the accord's legitimacy. Yet, she remained resolute. Drawing strength from her team and the growing public support, Rachel spearheaded a media campaign highlighting personal stories of those impacted by unregulated AI, humanizing the abstract issues. The campaign struck a chord worldwide, mobilizing grassroots movements and putting pressure on hesitant governments. At a critical summit, Rachel delivered a speech that resonated deeply. "We stand at a crossroads," she declared. "Our choices will define not only this generation but those to come. Let us choose courage over complacency, collaboration over conflict, and hope over fear." The room erupted in applause, signaling a shift in momentum. Meanwhile, Elon unveiled a new project, a global AI ethics oversight platform that leveraged blockchain technology to ensure transparency and accountability. The platform allowed real-time monitoring of AI systems, empowering regulators and the public alike. Rachel marveled at the innovation, recognizing it as a powerful tool in their arsenal. Yet, amidst progress, challenges persisted. A coordinated disinformation campaign sought to discredit the vanguard, Elon, and the Accord. Rachel confronted these attacks with unwavering honesty, engaging directly with critics and fostering open dialogue. The team also enhanced cybersecurity defenses to protect their work and their people. As the Accord neared ratification, Rachel received heartening news: her mother had made a full recovery, a personal victory amidst the global struggle. This renewal fueled Rachel's determination. On the day of the Accord's signing, Rachel stood alongside world leaders, witnessing the culmination of years of dedication. The moment was historic, a beacon of hope that transcended borders. After the ceremony, Elon approached Rachel, his eyes reflecting gratitude and pride. "We turned an insult into inspiration," he said softly. "This is just the beginning." Rachel smiled, knowing the journey ahead would continue to test them, but confident that together, they had laid the foundation for a brighter future. As the sun set, casting golden hues over the cityscape, Rachel felt a profound sense of peace. The fight had changed everything, proving that even in the face of adversity, courage and conviction could spark a revolution. And with that revolution, humanity's future was theirs to shape. The ratification of the Global AI Accord was celebrated worldwide, but Rachel knew this victory was only the beginning of a much longer journey. As governments committed to new ethical standards and enforcement mechanisms, the real work of implementation was just starting. Rachel and Elon returned to Vanguard headquarters with a renewed sense of purpose but also the heavy awareness that resistance from entrenched interests would continue. The very next day, Rachel was called to a closed-door meeting with leaders of several multinational tech companies. These CEOs, some once skeptics and others former adversaries, sat around a polished conference table, their expressions guarded. "The Accord is a step forward," Rachel began, "but it only works if we all commit to transparency and cooperation." One CEO, a sharp and pragmatic woman named Dana, leaned forward. "We agree in principle. But there are concerns about intellectual property, competitive advantage, and national security." Rachel listened carefully, understanding their fears. "Ethical AI doesn't mean giving up innovation," she said. It means guiding it with responsibility. If we lead together, we set the standard for the future, and no one wants to be left behind. The discussion was tough, but by the end, tentative agreements were made to pilot collaborative projects focusing on transparency and shared oversight. Rachel left the meeting cautiously optimistic. Meanwhile, Elon focused on expanding the conscious code's integration into practical applications. At Tesla, AI-driven safety systems were enhanced to prevent accidents and misuse. At SpaceX, AI helped optimize mission planning while ensuring human oversight at every step. These advancements demonstrated the tangible benefits of ethical AI. Yet, the global landscape remained volatile. News broke that a rogue state had launched an unregulated AI-powered drone strike, violating international law and escalating geopolitical tensions. Rachel and Elon condemned the attack publicly, urging swift collective action. The incident underscored the urgent need for enforcement mechanisms outlined in the accord. In response, Rachel helped convene an emergency summit, bringing together military, diplomatic, and technological experts to craft a rapid response framework. The summit highlighted the challenges of balancing security and ethics in a world where technology outpaced regulation. During this period, Rachel's personal life became a sanctuary amid chaos. She reconnected deeply with her family, cherishing moments of laughter and quiet reflection. Her mother's health remained strong, and Rachel found strength in their bond. One evening, Elon invited Rachel to a private dinner at a quiet rooftop garden overlooking the city skyline. "You've been the steady force through it all," Elon said sincerely. "Without you, none of this would be possible." Rachel smiled, feeling the warmth of the moment. "It's been a shared journey. We've learned to listen, adapt, and persist." Their partnership, both professional and personal, had become a source of inspiration and grounding. As the months progressed, the Vanguard launched an educational initiative targeting young people worldwide. The program aimed to cultivate ethical awareness and technological literacy from an early age, empowering the next generation to navigate the complex future. Schools embraced the curriculum enthusiastically, and Rachel traveled extensively to promote the cause. In parallel, Vanguard partnered with media platforms to create documentaries and interactive content that demystified AI and highlighted stories of positive impact. Public sentiment shifted as awareness grew, fostering a culture that valued responsibility alongside innovation. Despite progress, shadows lingered. Hackers attempted to breach the conscious code's protocols, and misinformation campaigns persisted. Rachel and her team worked tirelessly to counter these threats, enhancing security and communication strategies. One particularly tense episode involved a cyber attack that temporarily disabled critical AI monitoring systems. The Vanguard's response was swift and transparent, reinforcing public trust through honesty and resilience. In quiet moments, Rachel reflected on the journey. From a single insult hurled by a judge to a global movement shaping humanity's relationship with technology. The challenges had been immense, but so were the rewards. The fight had illuminated essential truths about courage, collaboration, and the power of vision. As she prepared for another international conference, Rachel felt a renewed commitment. The future was uncertain, but with vigilance and heart, it could be a future where technology uplifted rather than oppressed. Stepping onto the stage to address the crowd, Rachel's voice carried the weight of experience and hope. "We are the architects of tomorrow," she said. "Let us build a world where innovation and ethics walk hand in hand, where every step forward honors our shared humanity." The audience rose in applause, a testament to a movement born from adversity and nurtured by unwavering resolve. That night, as Rachel looked out over the city lights, she felt a profound peace. The path ahead would not be easy, but it was theirs to walk, together, with courage, integrity, and hope. The momentum built by the global AI Accord and the conscious code reached new heights, but Rachel knew the most difficult tests were still to come. With the world watching, Vanguard and its allies faced mounting pressure to demonstrate real-world impact beyond policy and speeches. The next phase demanded tangible results that proved ethical AI was not only possible but essential for a thriving society. One of the most significant challenges came when a major city experienced a catastrophic failure of its AI-managed infrastructure. The failure caused widespread blackouts, traffic chaos, and disruptions to emergency services. The incident quickly became a global headline and a stark warning about the dangers of poorly regulated AI. Rachel and Elon mobilized the Vanguard team immediately. Investigations revealed that the city had implemented AI systems from several vendors, many of which had bypassed the safety protocols advocated by the Conscious Code. The lack of coordination and oversight had left the systems vulnerable to cascading failures. Rachel addressed the crisis publicly, acknowledging the gravity of the situation and pledging full support for recovery efforts. This tragedy underscores why ethical AI governance is non-negotiable, she stated firmly. We must learn from this and ensure no community is left at risk. Elon led efforts to deploy Vanguard's emergency AI response units to assist the city, using advanced algorithms to stabilize power grids, reroute traffic, and coordinate first responders efficiently. The response was a testament to how ethical AI, when implemented correctly, could save lives and restore order. The city's mayor publicly praised the collaboration, calling it a model for other municipalities. In the aftermath, Rachel pushed for accelerated legislation mandating compliance with the Conscious Code for all critical infrastructure. While many governments supported the move, resistance lingered in sectors fearing increased costs or regulatory burdens. Rachel and her allies redoubled advocacy efforts, engaging with stakeholders across industries to highlight the long-term benefits of ethical AI implementation. At the same time, Vanguard invested heavily in research to improve AI's resilience and adaptability in complex environments. Elon spearheaded a project developing AI systems capable of self-diagnosis and autonomous repair within defined ethical boundaries, aiming to prevent future catastrophes. Meanwhile, Rachel's personal journey took an unexpected turn. A trusted mentor from her early career reached out, offering a chance to teach at a prestigious university. The opportunity resonated deeply. Sharing knowledge with aspiring technologists and ethicists felt like a natural extension of her mission. Balancing this new role with her responsibilities at Vanguard was challenging but rewarding. In the classroom, Rachel emphasized the importance of empathy, responsibility, and collaboration in technology development. Her students, inspired by her experiences, engaged in spirited debates and innovative projects aimed at solving real-world problems ethically. One student, a young woman named Maya, reminded Rachel of herself, passionate, determined, and ready to challenge the status quo. Their connection reinforced Rachel's belief in nurturing the next generation of leaders. Back at Vanguard, the team faced a fresh wave of cyber threats as adversaries sought to undermine their progress through sophisticated attacks and disinformation campaigns. Rachel coordinated with international cyber defense units, enhancing protective measures and fostering information sharing. Public communication remained transparent to maintain trust and counter false narratives. Elon continued innovating, unveiling a new AI-driven platform for real-time ethical compliance monitoring across industries. The system used decentralized technology to provide tamper-proof audit trails, enabling regulators and consumers to verify AI behavior confidently. The platform's launch was hailed as a breakthrough, attracting partnerships worldwide. Despite the successes, Rachel remained vigilant. She knew complacency was the enemy of progress. One evening, after a particularly grueling day, she sat alone in her office reflecting on the journey. The insult that had once seemed like a personal attack had become a catalyst for global transformation. She thought about the countless people who had joined the movement. Scientists, policymakers, activists, and everyday citizens, all united by a shared vision. Rachel understood that the fight for ethical AI was not a sprint but a marathon, requiring ongoing dedication and adaptability. As dawn broke, she felt renewed determination. The future was unwritten, and with courage, collaboration, and heart, they could shape it for the better. Stepping outside, Rachel breathed in the crisp morning air and looked toward the horizon. The journey continued, fueled by hope and the unyielding belief that technology could be a force for good. In that moment, she knew they were ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. The landscape of technology and ethics was shifting rapidly, and Rachel found herself at the heart of a pivotal moment in history. The lessons learned from previous crises had galvanized a global coalition dedicated to ensuring that AI development would be safe, transparent, and aligned with humanity's values. The Vanguard's initiatives were no longer fringe ideas but central pillars in international policy. Yet, with success came complexity. Rachel was invited to chair a New World Ethical Technology Forum, designed to bring together leaders from government, industry, academia, and civil society to navigate emerging challenges collaboratively. The forum's inaugural meeting was held in Geneva, drawing delegates from over 100 countries. The atmosphere was charged with anticipation and cautious optimism. Rachel opened the session with a powerful statement: "We are stewards of a new era, one defined not by technology alone, but by the values we embed within it. Our choices today will echo through generations." The delegates responded with enthusiastic applause, signaling a shared commitment to the cause. Over the following days, intense discussions unfolded around critical topics: AI's impact on employment, privacy, security, and human rights. Rachel moderated debates, encouraging diverse perspectives and emphasizing the importance of empathy and inclusivity. The forum worked to establish guidelines that balanced innovation with protection, striving for policies adaptable to rapid technological change. Meanwhile, Elon was advancing his vision for Mars colonization, integrating lessons from ethical AI to ensure sustainable, humane development of off-world habitats. His project sparked widespread imagination and debate about humanity's future beyond Earth. Rachel admired Elon's ability to dream big while grounding his ambitions in responsibility. Their partnership had become a model of visionary leadership tempered by ethical vigilance. Back on Earth, the conscious code's influence permeated everyday life. AI systems in healthcare improved diagnostics and personalized treatments, while education platforms tailored learning to individual needs, reducing disparities. Environmental monitoring using AI helped combat climate change, demonstrating technology's potential for good when guided by conscience. Yet, challenges persisted. Not all regions had equal access to ethical AI resources, and disparities threatened to widen global inequalities. Rachel championed initiatives aimed at bridging these gaps, advocating for technology as a tool for empowerment rather than exclusion. She collaborated with international development agencies to fund projects bringing ethical AI to underserved communities. One notable success was a rural education program in sub-Saharan Africa, where AI-driven tools helped local teachers enhance literacy and critical thinking skills. Stories from these communities reinvigorated Rachel's commitment, reminding her of the real human faces behind policy debates. However, the emergence of new AI capabilities also raised fresh ethical dilemmas. Advances in synthetic media and deepfakes threatened truth and trust, while autonomous weapons posed risks of escalation and misuse. The forum prioritized these issues, seeking to establish robust frameworks to prevent harm while preserving beneficial innovation. Rachel spearheaded a task force focused on media integrity, promoting tools and standards to detect and counter misinformation. The work was challenging but essential in maintaining the public's confidence. During this period, Rachel's leadership style evolved. She learned the value of listening deeply, embracing uncertainty, and fostering collaboration across cultural and ideological divides. Her speeches reflected this maturity, blending passion with humility. One particularly memorable address at the forum's closing ceremony emphasized unity: "Our diversity is our strength. By weaving together our unique experiences and wisdom, we create a tapestry resilient to the challenges ahead." The applause was thunderous. On a personal note, Rachel and Elon continued to navigate the complexities of their relationship amid their public roles. They cherished quiet moments away from the spotlight, grounding themselves in shared values and mutual support. Their story inspired many, a testament to partnership forged in the fires of adversity and vision. As the chapter drew to a close, Rachel received a letter from Maya, her former student-turned-young technologist, who had launched a nonprofit dedicated to ethical AI in education. The letter expressed gratitude and a commitment to carry the torch forward. Rachel smiled, realizing that the seeds planted years ago were blossoming into a global movement led by new generations. The future was filled with challenges but also hope. Rachel's journey, from the courtroom battle ignited by an insult to global stages shaping humanity's destiny, embodied the power of resilience, courage, and love. Standing before the stars one night, she whispered a promise to keep fighting, keep dreaming, and keep believing in the boundless potential of ethical innovation to transform the world for the better. The tides of progress surged relentlessly as the vanguard movement matured, its influence weaving deeply into the fabric of society. Rachel stood at the crossroads of innovation and ethics, where every decision bore weight beyond immediate consequences. The global AI Accord had transformed from a treaty to a living, breathing entity, shaping laws, inspiring education, and guiding technological breakthroughs worldwide. Yet, beneath this progress lay a persistent tension between idealism and pragmatism. Rachel found herself navigating political currents, corporate ambitions, and public expectations, each pulling in different directions. One afternoon, she received an urgent call from a trusted ally in the United Nations. Reports indicated a powerful lobbying effort aimed at watering down the Accord's enforcement clauses during upcoming treaty revisions. The move threatened to undermine years of hard-won gains. Rachel immediately convened a strategy session with her closest advisors and Elon. They devised a multifaceted campaign combining diplomatic pressure, public awareness, and coalition building. Rachel's experience as a communicator became invaluable as she crafted messages that resonated across cultures and media. In parallel, Elon leveraged his vast network to engage influential business leaders and philanthropists, emphasizing the moral and economic imperatives of strong enforcement. The campaign quickly gained traction, mobilizing activists, academics, and everyday citizens globally. Social media buzzed with hashtags supporting the Accord's integrity, and news outlets highlighted the stakes involved. Rachel also personally reached out to skeptical lawmakers, sharing data and stories that illuminated the human impact of ethical AI policies. The pressure bore fruit. The treaty revisions retained robust enforcement mechanisms, a victory celebrated as a testament to the power of collective action. Yet, Rachel knew complacency was a luxury they could not afford. The digital landscape evolved rapidly, and adversaries adapted quickly. One emerging threat was the rise of autonomous AI collectives operating outside any jurisdiction, networks of machines making decisions beyond human control or oversight. The phenomenon sparked heated debates at the World Ethical Technology Forum, where Rachel advocated for proactive regulation and international cooperation. She proposed the establishment of a dedicated oversight body equipped with cutting-edge monitoring tools and legal authority to intervene when autonomous systems posed risks. The proposal faced resistance from factions worried about overreach or stifling innovation. Undeterred, Rachel engaged in patient dialogue, building bridges and finding common ground. Her persistence paid off when the oversight body was approved, marking a significant milestone in global governance of AI. Meanwhile, Elon announced an ambitious project, creating the first ethically governed AI city, a living laboratory where technology and society coexisted under transparent, accountable frameworks. The initiative captured imaginations worldwide, promising a glimpse into a sustainable and humane future shaped by the principles Rachel and Elon championed. As preparations for the city unfolded, Rachel immersed herself in advisory roles, ensuring the project aligned with ethical imperatives and served as a beacon for other communities. The endeavor symbolized the tangible fruits of their relentless advocacy. Throughout these developments, Rachel remained grounded by her relationships and values. She maintained regular contact with Maya and other young leaders, mentoring and empowering them to carry the mission forward. Her connection with Elon deepened, their shared vision a constant source of strength. Reflecting on the journey, Rachel recognized the profound transformation, from a personal battle sparked by a judge's insult to a global crusade reshaping humanity's future with technology. The challenges ahead were formidable, but the foundation was solid. The story they had written together was far from over. On a quiet evening, Rachel received an invitation to deliver a keynote at a prestigious international symposium on technology and ethics. Preparing her speech, she crafted a message both hopeful and realistic: we stand at the threshold of possibility. Our choices will echo in the lives of generations yet unborn. Let us choose wisely, courageously, and with compassion. The day of the symposium arrived, and Rachel's words resonated deeply with an audience hungry for guidance in uncertain times. The standing ovation was not just for her, but for the movement she embodied, a testament to resilience, vision, and unwavering commitment to a better world. As she stepped off the stage, Rachel felt a surge of gratitude and resolve. The path ahead would be long and complex, but with every voice raised and every heart committed, the future remained a canvas for hope, innovation, and shared humanity. And in that moment, she knew they had changed the course of history forever. The journey had come full circle. From that fateful courtroom confrontation where a judge's insult once threatened to derail everything, to this moment standing on the global stage, Rachel felt the weight and wonder of all they had accomplished. The world had changed, and so had she. The vanguard movement, once a bold idea born of frustration and courage, had blossomed into a global force shaping humanity's future with technology, ethics, and heart. The atmosphere at the closing ceremony of the World Ethical Technology Forum was electric. Delegates from every continent gathered in a grand hall adorned with banners proclaiming unity, responsibility, and innovation. Rachel stood behind the podium, taking a deep breath before speaking to the crowd and millions watching worldwide. Today, we celebrate not just progress in technology, but progress in humanity. We have proven that innovation guided by ethics is not only possible, it is essential. We have faced skepticism, resistance, and challenges that at times seemed insurmountable. Yet, through collaboration, perseverance, and unwavering commitment, we have built a foundation for a future where technology uplifts every person. The applause was thunderous, a reflection of a shared vision that transcended borders and cultures. Elon sat nearby, his expression proud and hopeful. Their partnership had been the catalyst for much of this change, a testament to how confrontation can spark transformation. After the ceremony, Rachel retreated to a quiet garden overlooking the city. The cool night air carried a sense of peace, but also the hum of possibility. She reflected on the lessons learned, the importance of listening as much as leading, the power of empathy in a world often driven by competition, and the courage required to stand firm in the face of doubt. Her phone buzzed softly. A message from Maya: "Thank you for paving the way. The future is ours to shape." Rachel smiled, feeling the torch passed to the next generation. The world's challenges had not vanished, they never would, but the tools, values, and community forged through years of struggle had equipped humanity to face them with hope and resolve. In the months that followed, Rachel and Elon continued their work with renewed focus. The Ethical AI City launched to critical acclaim, serving as a beacon of sustainable, transparent innovation. Educational programs expanded globally, ensuring that ethical technology was not just an ideal but a lived reality for millions. Rachel also took time for herself, reconnecting with family, nurturing friendships, and embracing quiet moments that sustained her spirit. She understood now more than ever that leadership was not just about grand gestures but about the small acts of kindness and courage that ripple through communities. The story that began with an insult had become a legacy. It was a story about the power of resilience, the necessity of integrity, and the boundless potential of collaboration. Rachel often recalled the question that had launched their journey: what if you suddenly lost everything and had no one by your side? She realized that losing everything was not the end but often the beginning of discovering strength within and allies beyond. As she gazed at the stars one clear night, Rachel felt a profound sense of gratitude. The path had been hard, the battles fierce, but love for humanity, for truth, for a better world, had always led the way. She whispered a promise to herself and to all who followed, to keep dreaming, keep fighting, and keep believing in the light that shines even in the darkest moments. The story was far from over. But for now, it was a moment to celebrate how far they had come, and the infinite possibilities ahead. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?